Hails and well met, and welcome to my Dankest Dungeon. I'm your host, Mally Nim, and today within these dank walls I bring you a segment I like to call Dankest Dialogue, a show where I interview TTRPG actual play creators to nerd out about their campaigns and more. Today I'm joined by KatNBows. Hail, Kat. Welcome to my Dankest Dungeon. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is KatNBows, and I am the GM for TransXPTTRPG. We run queer and trans TTRPG games. We're a full VTuber, full trans TTRPG group. So happy to be on.
Thank you so much for accepting. I'm happy to have you here. Let's start from the beginning. How did you get into TTRPGs, and what's your experience as a dungeon master?
So I got into TTRPGs all the way back in high school, mostly just through watching actual plays on the internet. You know, this is when those things were starting to come about, or at least come about into my knowledge. Kind of a bunch of random small channels don't really post anymore. But you know, I started watching 2E content. Funny enough, Dungeons and Dragons 2E content. Watched a couple series of that. And then when I made my way into college, and kind of like early high school or like late high school, I was just like, I was the person who was the most interested in doing this hobby. And that naturally leads you into being the GM, you know, of the group. And so I tried to run a couple of games, largely very unsuccessfully for friends. Didn't really kick off. And then once I hit college, I found a friend group that was playing Dungeons and Dragons a little bit more regularly. And played with them a few times, kind of still got the hobby, got my feet wet. But nothing really like too like consistent week after week kind of thing. Another thing that kind of brought me into this hobby is I'm a lifelong theater nerd. I did musical theater since like third grade all the way through college. Acting, a little bit of directing here and there, and a lot of improv. And that's kind of like TTRPGs have become my like main outlet to express that side of myself. Because I mean, it's just, you know, interactive long form improv storytelling, and with dice thrown in to make decisions. And I really fell in love with just kind of the way the systems merged with the role play and things like that. Eventually, about 3-4 years ago, I met Mitha and Azure through a Discord server. Did a TTRPG Monster Hearts through there. Had an amazing campaign there. And then we went on to do a Girl by Moonlight campaign. This was all like offline, just kind of us playing personally together. And that's when Silver joined the group. And we just had a blast, and it was all we ever thought about for the past those 6 months or whatever. And then I've always been interested in making content creation, but it's, you know, so hard to push through, and especially with you when you have to do like absolutely everything. You know, you have to do your own promotion, you got to do your own, you know, you got to stream, you got to make your own content in other places and post on social media and all those other things. And so when the concept, me and Silver kind of discussed making a TTRPG group because we're all so passionate about this, it kind of came to fruition that we all had niches that the other ones couldn't fathom possibly doing. And for me, that was jamming, because at that point I'd been, you know, jamming for a good solid 4-ish years, in between just private personal games with majority of this friend group, but also just other groups of friends that I met online. And yeah, that's kind of how I got started in TTRPGs and overall wanting to make content.
Nice, very cool. I started the same way, at least the actual plays. They were like second edition as well.
Yeah.
Watching those. And that's what inspired me to start that. And I can relate on all the promotion and getting the word out there. It is quite difficult. I hope to help others with that, with this.
Yeah. That's why I'm super glad I'm here and you invited me on.
And still, it's an honor to have you. And so, your creative outlet, right? And you wanted to run. That's awesome. So how did you actually start with the actual plays? How did that come about?
So, it was, I mean, Vampire is a game that I've definitely always wanted to run, and that's our first game we're running. But something that's very important for our channel is to provide a variety, because like a lot of TTRG groups pretty much only play Dungeons and Dragons, or they only play, you know, whatever system they play, Pathfinder, whatever it is. But spice of life is variety to me, and I believe very strongly in if you want to get a different vibe, you should play a different system. Like, for instance, I am a bit of a D&D hater nowadays. I mean, look, you can do amazing things, and there are people doing amazing things with the game, and I'm not here to yuck on anybody's yum or, you know, tell people that they can't play in the way they want to play. I just feel that a lot of groups would be better served playing a system that is not so focused on combat when they don't want a combat focused game. You know, you see, like, I have friends that do incredibly amazing narrative games inside of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm like, okay, then why don't you play a system that encourages you to play into the narrative? I don't think D&D does that. But you know, I think there's lots of it's an incredible tactical RPG, and you know, if you just want a tactical RPG and you want to cover everything else by yourself, that's great. But the thing that I love about TTRPGs is they're a lens to tell stories through. And the mechanics, a good TTRPG will marry the mechanics of the game and help you and push that narrative of story. And that's why I like to play so many different TTRPGs, because, you know, you could play a vampire campaign in Dungeons and Dragons, but it wouldn't have the flavor, the drip, and it wouldn't have this marrying of mechanics to gameplay and storytelling that you know, White Wolf RPGs have, and you know, and the amazing amount of lore that has been written, and things like that. And so that was a really big focus for us, and we all had been wanting to play the system because we've never properly played it. And so that process almost took like a year. It was a lot of, you know, planning. It was a lot of figuring out how to stream to begin with. We all, you know, got our models paid for. We all got our started our own personal streams and things like that to kind of practice streaming. And then we also started doing a bunch of like one shots, or like a couple, you know, 3 or 4 episodes at a time and in a series. And through that process, we kind of figured out that we're all incredibly disabled, and, you know, showing up, at least our personal group is showing up on a Friday every week, at the exact same time, restricted a lot of flexibility for us. You know, we have people in our group that have pretty severe sleep disorders, and so like waking up on time every day, every week for the exact same time on something that we all cared so deeply about was really difficult. So we transitioned to doing a recording model where our lovely, amazing Mitha would edit the videos. We could all, you know, group up on the same day, but it wouldn't have to be, you know, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. every week or whatever. You know, it would be a lot more flexible to give ourselves the flexibility. And if we, you know, have to skip a week because, you know, somebody's got an appointment, somebody's got, you know, anything going on, we can do that. And that's kind of how we got into it. You know, we listened to ourselves, took our time, and, really fine polish this narrative, because we really wanted our first episode to be, there was going to be ups and downs, bumps, and like in episode 3 we started recording in 2K because we figured out we could, and then we've had, figuring out audio issues of recording 5 different lines of audio and then sending them through all 5 different tracks, is what we ended up figuring out how to do. But that was, not readily available information. And now in our second season, that we're going to be hopefully releasing soon, but we're still in the process of getting that set up and doing session zeros and stuff like that. It was a lot of trial and error, figuring stuff out and kind of focusing on the idea of, it's okay if it takes a while. These things take a while. We want it to be good. We want to be really proud of that first season, and we really have a focus on quality, and making the best product we can. Obviously these tools are going to get better. We're going to get better as we go on, but we already know our stuff is good. We just need to present it in the right light, and that's kind of what we spent that first year figuring out before we even like properly released an episode of our full series.
That's definitely some patience, because I went through the same thing. I can relate 100%. I tried streaming first, just to get my feet wet and to learn the system and everything, and then went into streaming actual plays, so I can relate. And I've stopped streaming actual plays. I plan on going on to the recording way like you have. A lot less stress, a lot less pressure, so totally relatable.
Yeah, and like there was definitely a lot of antsiness in like we had all our character stuff figured out. I had like most of the story written for how I wanted to take the beats and like things like that. But we still didn't have everything figured out on the back end of like how we properly want to do this, and that was frustrating. But we waited and we figured out ultimately it was for the better, because we produced, I think, a really, really good product for our first series out. And, not to throw shade on anybody, but like a lot of people's first seasons are rough, especially when they're doing a full group project with, everyone's figuring stuff out, but, we took our time. We, are trying to build things equitably, and, everybody's given, a roughly equal amount of work. And, that doesn't necessarily mean that, each person needs to spend X amount of hours, but it's, we play to people's strengths. And obviously, like, editing takes so much time. And I, once again, want to give our props to our editor, Mitha VT. Please go follow her and give her my love and your love. Because I cannot fathom being able to do that kind of work. And then, as well as like Azure, who makes our shorts, and having that consistency of posting over and over and over again. That's also something I would struggle with. Like, my work is very like anathemous, because like I'm always thinking about that stuff. And there's like, it'll be 2 a.m. and you're still up for some reason, then you think of something and then you go jot it down in your Google Doc, and it's just like, it's maybe not as much like sit down and work, but there's like the creative juices are always flowing. And so, and then Silver kind of wears all the hats, and he also does a lot of our art and things like that. And so we work really well as a team.
That's awesome. Sounds like you do have an amazing group with you. And yeah, I feel the shade over here, because the first few episodes of my first season was, yeah.
It's hard to produce something that you've never produced before, and I'm just glad that we tried and failed in other areas before we, focused on something we really cared about, Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. And were the like little one shots or little mini campaigns, were they before the vampire, like the Thirsty Sword Lesbians or the Wander Home or the Monster Hearts?
Yeah, we did all that stuff kind of live on Twitch, just kind of figure out how we wanted to do things. And then that's kind of like when the problem started cropping up, because we were missing a member a lot of the time for those campaigns. And and that was fine, and nobody was like mad. But it kind of turned into a pattern of, well, obviously, if we're going to be streaming a game where all of us need to be here every week, we need to figure out a different solution. And then that was what we're figuring out recording stuff did, and that allowed us to have such a much bigger end product production quality.
Oh, and that's good advice. Good advice for anybody out there. Don't jump into the deep end. Test the waters. Do a little practice. Good stuff.
Yeah. Try to finish something that first, and then step into something else. But yeah.
Oh yeah. So what was you said you had some ideas and stuff written down. How is your prep process for Blood of the Triad, your Vampire the Masquerade campaign?
My prep process for Vampire the Masquerade and kind of all TTRPGs initially starts with what the players want. I think of myself, I think a lot of GMs, and this is not to, devolve into any of these processes, but a lot of GMs come from a writing background. They construct this, beautiful, amazing city, and then, or even cities or countries, and they create the holidays and all this type of stuff. And I have immense respect for that kind of thing, because they want to be prepared for everything. And it's also just the world creation is the fun part for them, and so it's while it does take a lot of time to do those kinds of things, that's the whole part of the hobby they enjoy, and that's why they love being a GM, is creating this world and then throwing the players into it. I kind of operate under the premise of, if the players aren't interacting with it, I don't care. That is something that I'm trying to focus and get better on as a GM, because I have, in my opinion, really strong improv skills. I'm really good at coming up with things on the fly, and especially when I'm with great players and players I understand, they'll say one thing and I'll immediately be able to jump off that idea into 100 different things or whatever like that. But in other campaigns I've had, I know that it's been a crutch, when players are a little stuck, or whatever reason they're we're going around in circles for whatever reason, or just it is, at the end of the day, that it is my story and that is what I'm trying to tell it. But so what I have started to do for prep a lot of the time is essentially we go through player wants, desires, what they want to happen to their character. We go through their backstories, and then I will ask questions about their backstories, and then kind of through all this process create a general theme. Like, for instance, for Vampire the Masquerade, Blood of the Triad, that theme was family. Because I had watched this video basically talking about how Vampire the Masquerade should be a mafia story. And because everything's about families, whether your houses or, the Camarilla versus the Anarchs versus the Sabbat, there's various petty factions infighting. And that's perfect for a mafia story, and then your coterie versus, the big boss and all those types of things. And that's kind of where it started. We took that and extrapolated that one of the characters was going to be involved in the Triad, and then all the characters, the coterie is going to be involved with the Triad. And then each character we went through and tied those themes into their characters' backstories. So character like Fang, he has very strong ties, and his father is, the mob boss owner. He's the Triad leader in Montreal right now, at the start of the story. But Christina also is a very recently turned vampire, so her connection to her real life family is a whole other thing that is very tied to that theme. And then Tony has his pawn shop, and his raccoon is basically like a son to him, that kind of thing. And so we figure out all these things, we connect to that theme, and then we just kind of go. Um, I will also get, because I have players that love to put their characters through misery, I will get, ooh, can you please do this to my character? And it's the most fucking heinous shit you've ever heard of. And I'm like, sure, write that down, see if I can incorporate it into the story. And things like that. And that's something that I really thrive with, is a lot of my players also have a strong background in writing. And like, I feel like I am a great GM of a springboard. That's kind of how I see myself. I take no ownership of the story, really. Like, I'm the director, I'm seeing where things go, but I'm nothing without my actors. I can't manipulate the puppet strings without the thing I'm reacting to. And I definitely have notes, and I have a general theme, and I have a villain, and I'm writing that stuff, and that's the kind of the part that I'm working on. I'm getting better at, but that is kind of like where the base starts. It starts with the characters, it ends with the characters and what their characters' desires are, essentially. And that's how I GM and how I plan.
Great philosophy. Yeah, because it is about the characters, and I love that.
Yeah. That's at least what works for me. I know other people that have will be like, all right, I need to know what's going on in every part of this town and create like, all right, so this is the whole plot line of everything that's going on in the city during the campaign of the characters going to be there. And then it's the character's job to go into that and fuck it up. And that's another way, perfectly valid way to run. But, I'm kind of on the opposite extreme of that. Which just works for me and my skills and my style.
Same. I can relate to you on that as well, because it's the players that help drive the story. It helps me come up with ideas with what the players give me. Otherwise, if I don't know if they're gonna do what I plan out unless I know their characters, right?
Mm-hmm. And another thing is, I think I really enjoy how this style really drives character engagement, because I've some of my players have talked about how they've had GMs who they'll give, oh, I want to do XYZ thing with this character. I have this really cool backstory thing I thought of, and then it never comes up, and that really sucks. And so I try to create an environment where the story is their backstory. The story is those things, and of course, I have my own ideas, and I put them in, and I'm a player too. The GM is not, just a facilitator; they're a player. And so I bring my own ideas into it, of course, but I feel I am a yes and kind of GM, or a no but, and things like that. Like, you of course can say no, and I do. Like at the start of Blood of the Triad, we were talking about Silver, the player Fang, was talking about completely rewriting the history of Cain, who is essentially in the Vampire the Masquerade lore is the first vampire, and kind of really rewriting how all that went is really high concept, and I don't see it coming up, my friend. I love where your head's at, but let's rein it in a little bit. And then we came with something that was more feasible for the story.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you gotta bring in the reins on the players as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know we will get into show and tell to show off some of these amazing scenes from this campaign, but other than the ones we're going to show off, do you have any favorite moments off the top of your head from this season?
So, one of my favorite moments, I think, was the random character of Grits. So Grits runs a dingy little gumbo place in one of the walls of the subway. Runs a dingy little gumbo shop in the middle of the Montreal subway. And I don't know if you're aware, but in real life, the Montreal has a pretty expansive subway system, and there's a lot of it's almost like a mall below the city, kind of. And so there's lots of shops that line the walls of the subway and things like that, and a bunch of little stops. And he has a little stall in there. And he's a Nosferatu who runs a gumbo place. Very, very traditionally Southern, and has an obsession with women in sundresses. And so he has a bunch of photos plastered over the wall, some safe work, some not so safe work. Those are hidden in the back. Below the I had him dig a hole into the concrete of this place and have like a wrought iron bar fence or ladder down to this little hole where he keeps all his like vampire computer tech and things like that and hacker stuff. And because he's Nosferatu, he has animalism, so I'm like, all right, naturally that's a Ratatouille situation. The rats are cooking the gumbo and things like that. It was just very, very fun. And it was just a very off the cuff character, but I just love the name of a Nosferatu who runs a gumbo shop named Grits. I just think it's such a conjures an immediate image to your mind. I don't even have to go into the description of this person. You know, he's just like, you know, he's greasy and, you know, wearing one of those wife beaters that's covered in sweat and like things like that. It's just like, it conjured a very fun image. Another thing that I'm always going to be a big fan of is playing animals, giving them like very verbose personalities, is another big fun. So I had a lot of fun with Tony's raccoon character, his Bonfamilius Crumb, and just like making him very insistent and like constantly gnawing at the wrist of Tony because he needs his blood, and you know, doing very comical, like human-like things, very personification of like another thing. A scene happened at this gumbo, and we just see Crumb with a big bib with his face on it that says Grits Gumbo, and he's just sitting there with a big bowl of gumbo eating it.
That's adorable. That was his son, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it is his Bonfamilius, but another thing that, like, I mean, especially in today's world, and for at least my generation, we treat our pets like our kids because we're never going to be able to afford to have kids, and I don't ever personally want kids, and you know, a lot of my generation is figuring out that we don't we can be child free, and I'm really glad that that's starting to become an issue of like, don't have kids if you don't want fucking kids. That's how you traumatize your kids, you know. But we're starting to treat our pets as our kids, you know, and so that felt like the way this direction was.
I love that. I can relate to that too. I have two cats, my babies, my son and my daughter. I call them my son, I call them my daughter.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I have a cat and a dog too.
Nice.
Though they're technically my roommates, but I end up caring for them a lot whenever they're away or whatever, you know, things like that. And it's the perfect situation where you get to have all the fun with the animals all you want, but you don't have any of the like dumb annoying responsibilities parts of owning an animal. It's great. Can't further recommend having a roommate with a pet.
Nice.
It's largely not your responsibility, and you know, you can just hang out with the animals and keep them company. It's great.
That's how I feel about my nieces and nephews. I don't have to have kids. My siblings have kids, so I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anything during the campaign that you look back on or reflect back upon and be like, damn, I should have done that a little bit differently, or I should have said something different?
I mean, I think there's always going to be regrets. And you look back on your campaign and, you know, there's things you wish gone differently, or you think things gone differently. I struggle to find them for this campaign, honestly, because like I'm very big on I try to focus on let the dice tell the story, you know, and let the characters tell the story. And like, don't get me wrong, I had plots that are still stuck in the vault that I'm like, I wish this have come up. But you know, there's some spoiler things that I can't talk about because we are eventually planning on doing a season 2 for this campaign, even though it'll take, you know, probably about 2 to 3 years till we get to it, because we want to, as we said, provide variety. So we don't want to just go into another Vampire the Masquerade campaign and have it be, well, we're just doing vampire. You know, we don't want to be a group that just plays vampire. And I guess the one thing I will say is, so we had a 5th player come in mid-session, because one of Silver's character, Fang, wanted to have a werewolf boyfriend. And I don't know if you know much about vampires and drinking blood of a werewolf, but it makes them more likely to frenzy. And so that was perfect. Just added extra chaos, and you know, these groups that are typically supposed to hate each other. And his name is Ace Kiriyami. He ended up doing the art animation that we're going to show later in the episode. He's a brilliant artist, and we're so happy to work with him for this season. But something that I kind of, I guess, regret is not having a better understanding of the werewolf rules. Because there are some scenes in there, and I think they were handled really well. But you know, I'm always a stickler for getting the rules right. And, you know, sometimes it feels like I wish I would have done more to know the specifics of the rules, but also I think we had a lot of moments that I was just like, you know what, this is what happens. And we rolled with the punches and like just kind of threw some vague, this makes, you know, rule of cool and this makes sense, you know, kind of situation, which I also think was fine.
Oh,
There is a part of me that like always wants to know how the rules are played, and like I got nothing against changing them if I don't like them. You know, I don't think it fits the situation, but I think, you know, to hack properly, you need to understand why the rule exists in the first place, you know? And so I guess something that I'm definitely going to be focusing on for season 2, because Ace's character, Kane, which is, once again, it's Kane, not Cain. And that confusion was kind of amusing, and we started calling him Kane for part of the season, but because there was a miscommunication on how the name's supposed to be pronounced. But that was funny. Another thing that I guess I regret is like not having better captioning. We used a pretty janky system to caption all 5 people separately, which is great because, you know, we have 5 captions, you know, but when it works, it didn't work very often. And so that was a big frustration during recording. And I hope that the new system that we've developed will be much, much better at doing that. At closed captioning live, and it's going to add a little bit of complexity, but I think it'll ultimately simplify everything for everyone. So like a lot of the things that I regret, I guess, are more like structural things I could have changed or things like that. But besides that, I think the story went excellent, you know, and I try not to hang on to what ifs, at least in this situation, you know, because I think we told a great story, and that's what I care about the most.
nice. I can relate to that. I like to get the rules correct as well, and I messed up rules myself a few times, and I can regret that. But that's really awesome that your like main regrets are really only on the technical side. So that's really cool. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, there are, you know, obviously moments I could go through of the minutia of, you know, oh, I wish I played that accent a little better, or, you know, had a more distinct voice for that character, or, you know, just like notes of performance, because I'm always trying to strengthen my skills as a performer, as a GM, as a, you know, everything. But, you know, I think for some for my first opportunity of like really diving into this as a full-on project, I think and I think it's better to focus on being on the positives of that,
100%. That's awesome. Well, let's circle back. So you and your friends created the TransXPTTRPG group. Tell us more about this and what you hope to do, what you want to do, any future goals with this group.
I mean, ultimately, as a lot of content creation can be, like, ultimately our goal is to be able to, have this be our full-time job. We want to make trans art. We want to make queer art. We want to make art that is transgressive, challenges the status quo and things like that. And, that's always a little complicated from a financial standpoint. But, the last thing we want to do is compromise our morals because we think it makes a worse show, in that way. And so any support that we could find would be amazing. But yeah, we want to put on, several series, like if I'm talking massive wild pipe dreams that will never happen, I'd love to be as big as a Dimension 20 or a Critical Role, but that never happens because that's such a wild level of popularity that is unfathomable, but I would be incredibly content with a creation of, where we could produce our own content and this is what we do full time, and we can provide all sorts of different types of stories and creations and perspectives from a trans lens. That's the ultimate goal, is just to continue making this art, and hopefully be able to, drop merch and, create all these types of things. And, we have a several year plan laid out of the games we play and when we play them, things like that. And so we're not going anywhere, this is not going to be our last show. And that's really exciting because it's good to have something to look forward to, especially in a world where work is so stagnated and so corporatized, and it's, even if it's a pipe dream and inside of my mind, I struggle to believe that it'll happen, even though if, eventually you will become that size audience as long as you keep persisting and keep posting regularly, and give yourself the opportunity to go quote unquote viral, or, reach a size of an audience that is sustainable for you and your creative dreams and things like that. So yeah, the goal is just to keep posting. We'd love to make stories of, a lot of varied styles, and a lot of different games, and that's the ultimate goal. Just to keep making things. And I think in a side of a world that the way that everything is going, I think we need art like the ones I'm making and the ones that we're making. Helps push the world forward.
Yeah, I can feel you. I can relate. It would be nice to just get enough money to make ends meet and continue, having fun making cool content like this. And I wish the best for you in that, because I really like what you're doing.
I appreciate that. But yeah.
Let us move on to the next segment, basically the final segment, show and tell.
Yeah, so I've selected just kind of our intro animation that was made by our lovely Silver, though the art was commissioned. Those links will be, you can find all those links on our episodes of who has done what art and things like that. But I just kind of want to show off the characters first, just to kind of so you all can get a vibe of what they look like and things like that.
Tell us what we have here, Kat.
So we have our three lovely coterie mates. We have Fang, our Triad son's femboy, our Triad boss femboy son. Next, we have on our left, we have Christina, who is our Kaiti fledgling, who leans a lot into blood sorcery in this season. Becomes a terrifying fucking witch. And then we have Tony, who is our greasy gangrel character who turns into a raccoon. Just kind of wanted to display our intro animation here to just kind of introduce you all to the characters.
Very cool. Very cool. I love the art. Links to the artists in the description below.
Yep, absolutely.
Please set up this next clip.
All right, so next we have an amazing TikTok made by our werewolf of the party. His name is Ace Kiyomi, and he plays Kane. He's an amazing, talented artist, and he just made this very funny clip that very encapsulates the personality of these characters. And so I just thought it was very funny, and I wanted to share. Also, links to Ace's stuff in the comments, or the tags.
Fuck, it's cold. Guys, even thugs get cold. Jake, that might be true. I don't know how that correlates to you.
You know what they say, a hoe never gets cold.
So I'm with a thug and a hoe? Fuck, it's cold. Guys, even thugs get cold.
Just very funny. Very excellent comedic timing.
Thugs and hoes.
Yeah, that's the party. Thugs and hoes.
Nice. All right, you have a few more clips. Would you like to set up this next one?
Yeah, so the next clips I just kind of said is other ways to encapsulate the character, show off the rest of our models for our VTubers and things like that. Just very funny moments that popped up in game. These shorts were made by our lovely Azure. He plays Tony, and this one is Fang dealing with some difficult things to swallow, let's just say.
Hard to swallow right up to the end.
That's a one.
There's a limit to just how much dick Fang can eat.
Right? We have found it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's only so much you can swallow, you know?
This is true. I mean, unless, Well, next up, what do you have here?
Next one is just kind of our pre-game banter that I just thought was very funny and encapsulates a lot of Mitha's sass, and I just very much like it. Welcome everyone to Blood of the Triad, episode 14? Question?
Crazy.
That's fucking insane. My transgenders.
My genders.
My genders.
Every time we record an episode, a new gender gets its wings.
That's hilarious.
Every new episode, a new gender gets its wings. It's true.
You're doing work for the people.
Exactly.
And how about this clip here?
This clip is just to show you a little bit of how Tony works. What Tony's all about. Now, did the horrendous shirt start before or after he became a kindred?
Oh, definitely before. This has always been a him thing.
So it's not the insanity of living forever that turned him into this. He just was like this.
Yep, that was a conscious choice that he made.
Lovely. Yeah, Tony was just like that beforehand, and I think that says a lot about him as a person.
That's so cool. Hey, he's a raccoon dad,
Exactly. Likes to dig around in the trash, Quite literally. Does it several times in the season. But yeah, that's the kind of the basic clips I wanted to show. Just kind of give you guys a little taste of what the episodes might contain. There's a lot of drama and also things like that, but these are some of the funny parts, and I want to leave a lot of the spoilers out, just because I know people don't like to be spoiled too much, usually. But those are some little out-of-context snippets for you.
Love them. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. The characters, the players seem awesome. You have been a lovely guest, and I can tell from your actual plays, you're a great DM, GM, storyteller. So look forward to season 2. Speaking of which, besides season 2, you said you wanted to work on some more things in between. What does the future hold for KatNBows?
Well, depends on what this episode is airing, because I don't know if I'm going to be allowed to tell the information. But on the 22nd of July, so in a couple days, so this probably it'll already be out. This episode will already won't be aired by then. But we are doing a donathon on Friday, the 22nd of 2025. And we're going to try to do these every month just to kind of get a more consistent cash flow coming in, just so that we aren't constantly going into debt for art for our new series. But I can tell you that it's going to be a little bit magical. It's going to be a slightly shorter series. And so kind of the process that we're going to do, at least at the beginning here, is do like 1 to 2 short series and then a long after that. And then, so yeah, that's the general plan. We're going to do, probably about a 8 to 10 episode season of something very magical and high fantasy. So, I hope you all come to the stream, and if not, watch the VOD. There's and come over to our Patreon. If you subscribe, you can find a lot more early information about this. But yeah, please stop on by and check out our stuff. We will hopefully have more information out by the time this is posted.
If all goes well, this will be posted on the 25th, so you haven't spoiled anything.
Yeah. If by the 25th, hopefully, if everything gets funded, we will be able to announce the series name and some of the other stuff that we have made. We have a lot of art made already. It's gonna be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. I look forward to it too. I hope I can come and visit you on the stream because, yeah, I know how it is. Please help actual play content creators. Please help KatNBows, help TransXPTTRPG. Please support them.
We would really appreciate it. And please support our lovely host today as well, because he also deserves it for coming on and doing all this work of promoting other people.
Oh, thank you. Well, I believe that wraps up our interview. Any parting words for the audience, Kat?
Be gay, do crimes, call your senators, call your government, tell them to stop treating you like absolute shit, things like that.
Agreed. I mean, it's an easy philosophy. Just be excellent to each other.
Exactly.
Thanks again. Have a wonderful day, Kat.
All right, you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you again for joining me, Kat. You can find the links to Kat's social, as well as the TransXPTTRPG channels in the description below. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment. I really appreciate it.